A strange noise in the night. It was a cold, rainy night. The wind blew through the tall trees. The forest was dark and quiet, except for the sound of rain hitting the roof. John lived alone in a small wooden cabin deep in the woods. He liked the peace, no city noise, no people, just him, his dog Max, and the sound of nature. That night, John sat near the fireplace, reading an old book. Max, a big black dog, lay at his feet. The clock showed midnight. Everything was calm until a strange sound broke the silence. Who? Hum. John looked up. The sound was low and deep. It came from outside. Max stood up and growled. His ears went straight. Something was out there. John grabbed his flashlight and coat. He opened the cabin door slowly. Cold wind rushed in. Max barked once and ran ahead. Max! Stay close, John whispered. The sound grew louder. Who? It wasn't a normal sound. It wasn't a machine. It wasn't an animal. It was something else. John followed Max into the trees. The forest was darker than usual. Clouds covered the moon. But the sound led them forward. After 10 minutes of walking, John saw a faint blue light in the distance. There, he said to himself. What is that? He moved closer. Behind the trees, in a small clearing, he saw it. A large, silver object lay in the mud. It was shaped like an egg. It was cracked on one side. Blue lights blinked slowly on its surface. Steam rose from the broken parts. The sound was coming from inside. John stood still. Max didn't bark now. He whined and stayed close to John's leg. Carefully, John stepped forward and looked inside the broken pod. His eyes went wide. Inside, he saw a strange creature, a woman, but not human. Her skin was pale silver. Her eyes were large and dark. She looked weak. In her arms, she held 2 small children. Twins. They looked just like her, but smaller, scared, and shivering. The woman looked up at John. Her face showed pain, fear, hope. Please, she said in a soft, broken voice. Help us. John stepped back, shocked. Was this real? Was he dreaming? The woman tried to stand but fell. She looked at the twins, then back at John. Coming, she whispered. John didn't understand. Who's coming? He asked, but she passed out. The twins looked at him with wide, glowing eyes. They didn't speak, but something about them felt innocent, helpless. John looked around. The forest was silent again. The blue lights on the pod flickered and died. He had a choice. Leave them here, or help. John made his decision. Come on, he said, picking up the alien mother. I don't know who you are, but you need help. He picked up the mother and carefully held one twin in each arm. They were much lighter than human. Babies. Their skin felt soft and cold. Max barked once, then led the way back to the cabin. Back at the cabin, John laid the mother on the couch. He wrapped the twins in blankets. He didn't know what to do. He had no idea what kind of life forms they were. But he saw fear in their eyes. They were not dangerous, just lost. The mother slowly opened her eyes. Thank you, she said. Weakly, what's your name? John asked. She paused, then spoke something strange, a word he couldn't repeat. Then she said, you can call me Nira. Nira, he repeated. The twins moved closer to her. She held them tight. Where are you from? He asked. Far, she said. Different stars. Her English was broken, but her meaning was clear. You were in that pod? You crashed? She nodded slowly. They chased us. We escaped. Ship broken. Children in danger. John felt a chill. Who's chasing you? She looked at the window. They hunt my kind. No mercy. Max barked again. John looked outside. Nothing. But he had a bad feeling. Something, or someone, was out there, Hours passed. The storm outside grew stronger. Inside, John sat near the fireplace, watching Nira and the twins sleep. His mind raced. Aliens. In his home. What would happen if someone found out? What if the hunters came? Then Max growled. John stood up and looked out the window. In the sky, a red light blinked once. Then again, a strange, silent shape moved across the clouds. Not a plane, not a bird. It hovered, then disappeared behind the trees. John's heart beat faster. Someone was looking for them, and they just might have found them. The sun had not yet risen. The forest was still dark. But inside the cabin, things had already changed forever. John sat at the edge of his couch, staring at the strange family sleeping before him, the alien mother and her two silent twins. The fire crackled behind him. Max, his dog, kept his eyes on the window. He hadn't stopped growling since the red light passed overhead. Suddenly, the woman gasped. Her eyes opened wide. She looked around, confused. "You're safe," John said softly. "You're in my cabin. You fainted." The woman slowly sat up. Her silver skin shimmered faintly in the firelight. Her eyes locked on her children. They were sleeping beside her, wrapped in blankets. "You helped us?" she asked, her voice weak. John nodded. "You needed help." The woman looked at him. Her face was unreadable. Then she lowered her head. "My name is Nira," she said. "And you are the first human I've met who didn't try to kill me." John frowned. "What do you mean?" Nira didn't answer right away. She held her twins close, as if someone might take them away. "I come from a world far from here. A world of peace. We study, we heal. We don't fight." John listened quietly. "But others, not like us," she continued. "They hunt, destroy. They find any peaceful world and burn it. We escaped. But they followed. Who are they?" John asked. Nira's eyes filled with fear. "They call themselves the dark kind. Machines mixed with monsters. Number. Feelings, no home. They only take. When I saw Earth, I thought maybe it was far enough." She looked at her children. "They are all I have." John felt a knot in his chest. He wasn't sure if he believed everything yet, but he couldn't ignore what he saw with his own eyes. The mother, the twins, the fear. "Why here?" he asked. "Why my forest? My cabin?" She reached under her blanket and pulled out a small, glowing device. It was shaped like a teardrop, smooth and silver blue. It pulsed faintly. "This chose you," she said. "Not me." John stared at the device. "What is it?" She paused. "It's a lock, a key, a beacon. It can open the way home, but only if the right one holds it." John took the device carefully. It felt warm in his hand, like it was alive. "Why me?" Nira's voice lowered. "You are alone. You are hidden. And you are not cruel." John didn't know what to say. Before he could speak, Max let out a sharp bark, then a buzzing sound, faint, far but clear. John jumped to the window. Over the trees, a small black shape moved slowly. No wings, no lights. Just a smooth, floating object, almost like an insect made of metal. "A drone," he whispered. "Military? No, it's too quiet." Nira stood weak but alert. Her hand glowed for a second, a soft pulse, and the windows darkened instantly. What the hell was that? John asked, stepping back. "I cannot fight them," Nira said, "but I can hide." John looked at her. "You have powers?" "No," she said, "only knowledge." She walked to the twins, who were now awake. They watched the ceiling, silent, eyes glowing faintly. "They are not normal," Nira said softly. "They feel things. They know when danger is near. Like now?" She nodded. "They sense. The hunter is close." John clenched his fists. Are more of them coming? Always, she whispered, until we are dead or gone. Later that day, John drove to the edge of town to buy supplies. He didn't tell anyone what he had at home. He bought food, medicine, blankets, and extra batteries. But something strange happened out at the store. A man in a black suit asked him if he had seen anything fall from the sky recently. John lied. Nope, just trees and rain. The man smiled too much. His eyes didn't smile. He handed John a card. If you see anything unusual, he said, call us. John took the card but said nothing. That night, as the twins slept and Nira rested, John sat by the fire again. He held the glowing device in his hand. Suddenly, one of the twins sat up and walked to him. Without a word, the child reached out and touched the device. Click. The device lit up, bright blue. Strange symbols appeared in the air. A quiet hum filled the room. Wait, what did you do? John said. But the child just stared at him. Outside the cabin, far, far away, in the night sky, a signal had been sent. To someone. To something, and now they were coming. The night was heavy. The air felt different, still and thick, like it was holding its breath. John couldn't sleep. He sat outside the cabin on a wooden chair, holding a shotgun on his lap. Max sat beside him, ears up, eyes scanning the darkness. Inside the cabin, the alien twins were asleep. Their mother, Nira, lay weak but awake, watching them. John looked at the glowing device in his hand. It had stopped humming, but strange symbols still floated above it, fading in and out like whispers. He didn't understand any of it, but it had done something. It had called something. And now, the forest felt like it was listening. Suddenly, Max stood up and growled. John froze. In the distance, above the trees, lights blinked in the sky. Not airplane lights. These were slow, silent, red and blue, blinking in a rhythm. Then, thump, a small object fell from the sky into the woods behind the cabin. The ground shook gently. Birds flew up, crying in the dark. Max barked. Nira opened the door, breathing fast. It begins, she whispered. John grabbed a flashlight and ran toward the trees. Max followed. The crash wasn't far. He moved through branches and thick leaves until he saw it. A metal sphere, about the size of a car, was stuck in the ground. It wasn't broken. It didn't even burn the grass around it. Suddenly, it clicked. Open. John pointed his gun, but what stepped out was not a monster. It was a human. Or at least, something trying to look human. It wore a black uniform, its face smooth and pale. Its eyes were all black, without pupils. No emotion. No blinking. It turned to look at John. Identify, it said in a cold, robotic voice. John didn't move, I said. The thing repeated, louder, identify. Just a guy with a dog and a shotgun, John said. Who are you? I am Seeker Unit 9. Target was here. You interacted. Return the children. John's finger touched the trigger. Children are not yours, he said. Seeker tilted its head. Human emotional response detected. Interference recorded. Then it raised its hand, but before it could do anything, boom, a blast of energy hit Seeker's side. It flew into a tree and sparked like broken wires. Its body twitched but didn't move again. John turned to see Nira behind him, holding a strange tube-shaped weapon. Smoke rose from the end. I told you, she said. They always come. Back at the cabin, John and Nira sat by the fire. She looked weaker now. Her skin had turned dull gray. You shouldn't have come out, John said. She smiled sadly. I had to. You're not ready to fight them. I don't even know what they are. She closed her eyes, resting her head back. They were once people. Like you, but they gave up their souls to survive. Now they are machines with memories, no heart, no love. Just orders. John looked at the twins. They sat near the fireplace, watching the flames. Quiet, Too quiet. Why don't they speak? He asked. They feel more than they speak. Nira said, they are still learning your world, but they trust you. One of the twins walked up to John and placed something in his hand, a small silver square. What is this? He asked. Nira's eyes opened. That is my last gift. My memory core. If I don't survive, it will show you how to protect them. How to guide them. It is everything I know. John stared at the tiny object. It didn't look like much, but it felt heavy. Like responsibility. Like a promise. That night, John couldn't sleep. Again, he stayed awake, watching the sky. At 3:14 a.m., the ground vibrated again. But this time, nothing fell. Something landed silently. He looked up, and there it was. A massive black triangle hovered above the trees. No sound, no light now. Just a dark shape blocking out stars. Then a line of small dots fell from the craft. At first, they looked like falling stars. But they didn't burn. They landed around the cabin, quiet, precise. John woke Nira. She looked at him with calm eyes. They found us, she whispered. The twin stood up, as if already knowing. What do we do? John asked. Nira pointed to a backpack she had built. From parts of her crashed pod, take the twins. Take the memory core. Run west. There is someone hidden in the mountains. He can help. He has seen the stars. He was one of us long ago. What about you? John asked. I will stay. Buy time. No, he said. You'll die. She smiled. I'm already dying. Outside, the machines marched forward. Inside, John picked up the twins, grabbed the bag, and looked at Nira one last time. She placed her hand on his shoulder. You are their only hope now. He ran out the back door. Into the darkness. The machines broke through the front, and behind him, for just a moment, John saw a bright blue flash. Then, nothing. The forest was burning behind him. John didn't look back. He ran through the trees with the twins, in his arms, one on each side. Max, his dog, ran ahead, guiding the way like he knew the path already. Behind them, the air glowed blue. Something had exploded, something not human. John's heart pounded. He didn't know if Nira was still alive. He didn't have time to cry. He had a mission now. Protect the twins. They ran for miles, deeper into the woods. At sunrise, John reached an old hunting shack hidden between two cliffs. He kicked the door open and stepped inside. Dust, silence, forgotten tools. Good. This place hadn't been used in years. Max checked the corners. Clear. John laid the twins down gently. Their faces were pale. One of them held tight to John's jacket. The others stared at the door, like they could sense something outside. John locked the door, pushed a shelf in front of it, and finally sat down. His body ached. His mind was racing. He opened his hand and looked at the memory core Nira gave him, the tiny silver square. You better have some answers, he whispered. He pressed the center. The square lit up, floating above his hand, and suddenly, a soft, blue hologram of Nira appeared. Not real. Just a message. If you're seeing this. I'm gone, the image said. And they're coming. But this is not the end. This is the moment you begin. The hologram showed John a map, a glowing line moving west through the mountains. There is a man named Silas. He was once one of us. He lives off the grid. Trust no one else, only Silas. Then her face changed, serious. But be warned, they have sent their strongest. At that moment, far behind in the forest, something rose from the crater Nira left behind. A tall metallic figure, 9 feet high, covered in black armor that looked like bone. Its face had no eyes. Just a smooth, silver mask that reflected the flames. Its name was VRX. It wasn't a drone. It wasn't a soldier. It was a hunter. It knelt beside the ashes, picked up a broken piece of Nira's ship, and turned toward the west, where the faint signal still pulsed. A target, a scent, a purpose. Back in the shack, John was preparing for the road. He made a backpack from old cloth. Packed water, food, batteries, and the memory core. He looked at the twins. They were awake, watching him. One of them, the quieter one, touched John's chest with a small hand. Suddenly, images flashed in John's mind, visions. A tall city of crystal towers, spaceships floating in blue skies. Nira smiling, then running, hiding, screaming. The hunter's face, cold, empty. John fell to his knees, gasping. The child had shared a memory. "You're scared," he said, breathing hard. "But I'm scared too." The twin leaned forward and placed its head on his chest. The other did the same. And for the first time, John didn't feel alone. Night came again. John had just finished boarding the windows when Max barked, loud and sharp. Then silence. Too quiet. John grabbed his flashlight, looked out through a crack. His blood turned cold. Vrax was here. The hunter stood motionless at the edge of the trees, just staring at the shack. Not moving, not blinking. Then it spoke, but not with a voice. The words came inside John's head. "You carry what is not yours." John backed away from the window, heart racing. The air grew heavy. The wood in the walls began to vibrate. Max growled, ready to fight. John looked at the twins. They were standing now, no fear on their faces. Their hands were glowing faintly blue. "I won't let you take them," John said out loud. Suddenly, crash. The wall exploded inward. Vrax stepped through the smoke like a ghost. John raised his shotgun and fired. Boom. Boom. The shots hit the hunter's chest, no effect. Vrax raised an arm. A dark energy pulse flew toward John, but just before it hit, the twins raised their hands. Boom. A blue shield appeared, stopping the blast cold. Dust flew everywhere. John stared in shock. The twins were protecting him. Vrax paused. Even he was surprised. "Untrained," he said, "yet already awakening." The cabin began to collapse. John grabbed the twins. Max barked wildly, and together they crashed through the back door into the night. Running again. Running west. As they disappeared into the trees, Vrax stood alone in the ruined shack. He picked up the shotgun John had dropped. He crushed it with one hand. Then he spoke into the air. "Target is moving west. Prepare for final interception." And just like that, he vanished. The mountain road was cracked and empty. Fog moved across the trees like slow ghosts. Every few minutes, a crow screamed overhead. But the rest of the world was quiet. Too quiet. John kept his eyes on the narrow road ahead. One hand on the wheel, the other on a small alien compass, glowing blue in his palm. It didn't point north. It didn't point anywhere normal. It pulsed when they were on the right path. Next to him, the twins sat silently in the passenger seat, wrapped in thick blankets. Max rested in the back, his head up, ears always listening. The old pickup truck groaned with each turn. But it kept moving, through the mountains, toward someone John had never met, but already needed to trust. The memory core Nira gave him had spoken a name, Silas, a human. Once part of their kind, hiding in the mountains. Off the grid, watching the stars. But the message didn't say why he left, or if he was even still alive. All John had was a glowing map, 2 quiet alien kids, and a cold wind chasing them, and something darker behind them. An hour passed, then the compass pulsed harder. The road ended at a chain-link fence covered in vines. No signs, no gates, just nature and metal. John stopped the truck. "Is this it?" he asked the twins. They didn't answer, but one of them touched the window. Their small hand glowed, and the fence opened with a click, sliding back like an invisible door. John blinked. "Okay, we're definitely in the right place." He drove slowly through the open path. They entered a valley hidden between cliffs. Inside, silence, thick mist, and a massive metal building half buried in the ground, like a shipwreck from the future. No lights. No sound, just birds flying above. It in circles. John stepped out of the truck. The air smelled of rust and cold. Rain. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the shadows. Stop moving. John froze. The twins grabbed his coat. I said stop, the voice repeated. Then from the fog a man appeared. Old. Tall. Long white hair tied back. A long coat. A laser rifle aimed at John's chest. You don't belong here, the man said. Are you Silas? John asked. The man didn't answer. John slowly pulled the memory core from his pocket. Nira sent me. Silas lowered the gun an inch. She's alive? John shook his head. Silas stared at the twins. Then he nodded once. Come inside, quickly, before they find you. Inside the old bunker, machines hummed softly. Alien tech and human junk were everywhere. Wires, broken helmets, maps of stars on the walls. Silas led them to a room with strange lights and a metal table. He scanned the twins. They're strong, he muttered. Too young to fight, but they're waking up fast. Waking up? John asked. Silas sighed. Their minds, their energy. They're linked to the core. These children are not just survivors. They are. He paused. The last spark of her. People. And the hunter? John asked. It's following us. Silas looked grim. Not just one. Once a hunter locks on, others follow. Earth isn't safe anymore. He turned to a map on the wall. A star chart. There's one way out, he said. A gate. A gate? Built thousands of years ago. Hidden. It's not just a machine. It's alive. And only they, he pointed to the twins, can open it. Where is it? John asked. Silas tapped the map. A mountain. Far north. No roads. Just snow and death. John looked down at the twins. They were quiet. But one of them reached out and touched the map. The star chart lit up. Silas stared. It's true, he whispered. They can feel it. Outside the bunker, a shadow moved. The birds stopped flying. The wind died. Then, deep in the woods, a soft, cold clicking sound began. Metal legs on rock. Eyes like red knives cutting through the dark. Vrax had arrived. Back. Inside, alarms started beeping. Silas ran to a screen. He's here, he growled. How did he find us so fast? Because I brought this, John said, holding up the memory core. It must be sending a signal. Then throw it away. Silas shouted. No, said John. It's our only chance. Silas stared. Then. He nodded. Fine, then we fight. He handed John a strange weapon, part rifle, part pulse cannon. I hope you learn fast, Silas said. The forest began to glow red. The battle had begun, and the road to the gate had just opened. Snow fell like ash from a dying sky. The mountain was silent, but not peaceful. John stood near the edge of a rocky cliff, looking up at the ancient gate, a towering arch carved into the mountain itself. Symbols glowed faintly on its stone surface. It looked asleep, forgotten. Beside him stood Silas, breathing hard, face pale. The climb had been brutal, the air thin. Every mile a war, but they had made it. Behind them, inside the cave tunnel, the twins sat close together, tired and cold. Max lay at their feet, growling softly. He could feel something coming, because something was coming. John checked the old alien device again. The glowing line on it pulsed faster now. This is the place, he said. But why doesn't it open? Silas stepped forward. This is not a door, he said. It's a test. A test? They built it long ago, Silas explained, to protect the last of their kind. This gate will only open if it senses something pure, something worth saving. John looked back at the twins. They're just kids. Silas shook his head. They're more than that. They're a future. They're hope. A loud boom echoed through the valley. Birds flew from the trees below. The ground shook gently. John turned from below the cliffs. They came, drones, black and silent, like crows made of shadow, and behind them, walking slowly, unstoppable, Vrax. His body burned with red lines now. Like lava in armor. He had tracked them across forest, snow, and sky. He did not sleep. He did not stop. He did not fail, and he was almost here. Silas threw a bag to John. "Take them," he said. "Get to the gate. I'll hold them back." "No," John said. "We do this together." Silas smiled, tired and proud. "You really are human." The first wave hit fast. Drones shot through the trees like knives in the wind. John and Silas fired back, pulse rifles glowing, bullets cutting air. Sparks flew. Ice cracked. Snow melted from heat blasts. Max charged at a drone and brought it down with a growl. The twins stayed behind, watching, eyes glowing faintly, but they did not cry. They were calm. John turned to yell something, then a shadow crashed down from above. Vrax landed like a god of war. He didn't speak. He just raised his hand and blasted Silas into the cliff wall. "No!" John screamed. He ran to Silas. The old man was still alive, barely. His chest burned. Blood on the snow. "Go," Silas whispered. Now, John turned, shaking, rage building in his chest. He fired everything he had at Vrax. Nothing worked. Vrax stepped forward. "You are not chosen," Vrax said. "You are only delay." Then he raised his arm to strike. Suddenly, the twins stood up. Together. Their eyes glowing bright, blue, white, and gold. They walked to the center of the stone gate. The symbols on the arch lit up. One by one. Wind stopped. The mountain trembled. The gate began to open. Vrax turned toward the light. He fired at the twins. John ran. Diving between them, he took the hit in his back. He screamed, but stayed standing. He looked down at them, shaking. "You have to go now," he said. "You have to finish this." The twins looked at each other. Then, without a word, they reached out, one hand each, and touched John's chest. Blinding light burst from them both. John's body lifted from the ground, not flying but rising, glowing. His wounds faded. His eyes widened. He saw visions, stars, planets, songs of light, memories not his own. And then he understood. He was not just their protector. He was their bridge. Behind them, the gate fully opened. A beam of light shot to the sky. A signal, and from the clouds above, ships appeared. Sleek, silver, beautiful. Not war machines. Not destroyers. Guardians. Vrax stepped back for the first time. Unsure, a voice came from the sky in a language John somehow understood. "You have passed the trial. The gate is open. Come home." John looked at the twins. "Are you ready?" he asked. They both nodded. Vrax roared and charged one last time. But before he could strike, a massive, white beam shot down from above and hit him full force. He vanished. In the light, not destroyed, just erased, John, the twins, and Max walked into the glowing gate. Behind them, Silas smiled one last time, then closed his eyes. As the gate faded into starlight, a final message appeared in the snow, glowing and alien. Script: "Hope is not born. It is chosen." There was no ground under his feet. No weight. No fear. Just light. John floated through a tunnel of stars, with the twins on either side of him. Their small hands held his. Max floated too, like a shadow caught in a dream. Ahead of them, the gate pulsed softly, no longer just a doorway, but a bridge between worlds. Behind them, Earth was gone, and in front of them, a new sky. The light faded. John landed gently on warm silver grass. The sky above was violet blue, with 3 suns floating. In silence, giant crystal towers stood in the distance, humming softly like music. He took a deep breath. The air was sweet. Alive. He looked at the twins. They smiled for the first time. They felt home. A group of beings approached. They weren't soldiers. They weren't aliens in armor. They looked almost human, tall, elegant, with glowing robes and kind eyes. They walked slowly, as if time moved differently here. One of them stepped forward. "You brought them," the voice said, not loud, but it echoed deep in John's chest. John nodded, still confused. "They're safe now. That's all that matters." The figure turned to the twins, bowed his head, and spoke gently. "You are the last children of Nira, keeper of peace. And now, seeds of the future." The children stepped forward. They placed their hands on the elder's chest. A soft wave of light passed between them. John watched, unsure what he had done or what he had become. Later, John stood at the edge of a glowing river. Max drank calmly beside him. The twin siblings played nearby, floating pebbles in the air, making them dance like birds. John heard footsteps. The elder sat beside him. "You were chosen," the elder said. "I didn't ask to be," John replied. "None of us do. But you carried hope when it was nearly lost." John looked at the stars above. "I'm not a hero. I just didn't want them to die." The elder smiled. "That is exactly why you are one." John stayed. He lived among them. He learned their language, not with words, but through memory and light. He helped build gardens, protected the twins, and even taught a few children how to fish, though none liked the taste. He asked once about Earth. If he could go back, they told him, "Yes, but you will not be the same. And Earth may not wait kindly." John never asked again. Years passed, but not in the way time moves on Earth. The twins grew. Not just taller, but brighter, wiser. Their powers matured. One could move stone like it was paper. The other could heal with a single touch. But they never left John's side. They called him Protectorin. And others did too. He was no longer just a man. He had become part of their story. One evening, John stood on a cliff, watching the sky. Ships moved across the horizon, not warships, but sky gardens and light gliders, carrying music and memory across their peaceful world. Then the elder approached again. "It is time," he said. "For what?" "For them to lead." John looked at the twins. They stood with others now, speaking, guiding, teaching. "They were never meant to be hidden," the elder said. "They are not children anymore." John nodded slowly. "And me?" The elder placed a hand on John's shoulder. "You have protected. You have planted. Now, you may rest." That night, John walked to the gate. Yes, there was another, but this one opened inward, toward the stars, not from Earth, but from within this world. He looked at the sky once more, then turned back. The twins were there, watching. One stepped forward and gave him something small. A silver square. The memory core. Rebuilt. It glowed with his memories. Now. His voice. His journey. They would remember him. Always. As the gate opened, John stepped into the light. But this time, not to run, not to fight, but to become. What? No one knows. Some say he became a guardian of stars. Others say he became part of the gate itself, a protector for the next lost soul who comes through. But the last thing he said was simple. Home is not a place. It's the ones you save.